Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We will rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Millions. In Millions, the head of the Ferretti business empire is involved in a helicopter crash and falls into a coma. A new president needs to be appointed immediately, and the young, ambitious Maurizio Ferretti, played by Billy Zane, is upset that he's passed over. Maurizio devises a plan to rise to power anyway, using all the resources and relatives that he can find. Screenplay by Enrico Vanzina and Carlo Vanzina, directed by Carlo Vanzina, and released in Italy on January 25th, 1991. I'm not even going to ask you if you've ever seen this movie before, because I don't know how much the U.S. has seen this movie before. Could not find a U.S. release date on IMDb.
No, that was one of my questions to myself that I was trying to find, and I could not find, like, did this movie ever come to the U.S.? And I don't think it did.
Yeah, it's tough to say.
I have so many questions that I could not get answers to.
I know Wikipedia lists a February 1st release date, but they don't say where or what country.
But it does say, like, TV edit, so, like, was this a TV movie, or was it released in theaters and then it was on TV?
I don't know. It would definitely have to be edited for TV. Unless Italian television is much relaxed about the nudity side of things. Because there weren't really bad words and there's no violence in it, but there's boobs and butts galore.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, neither of us have not seen this movie unless we were living in Italy in the early 90s.
Yeah, I was trying to find proof that there was a US VHS, and I really don't know 100% for sure if it exists. So I don't know if it ever got like a home video release stateside. There are VHSs that exist, but they're typically other countries. And the reason we're able to watch it is because there was a DVD release in multi-packs. Like, we have the Suspense Classic full 50-pack movie package from, like, you know, what was that, Mill Creek Entertainment, you know, like those companies that just put together a bunch of really cheap or copyright free movies in these bundle packets. So it's, you know, 4 movies on one disc, double set. That's the kind of thing that you can find it in, and that's where we watched it, is through that. But yeah, not a lot of US exposure as far as I'm aware, and no box office information that we could find for it. So yeah, it's a weird one. The reason we're including it at all, a part of this, like, January theme, is because it was released on January 25th. This episode is releasing, January 24th?
Yeah.
So we're trying to just, like, we tried to find one that sort of matched the release date, just as a fun new thing to try for the podcast for a week. And it was a weird movie. It was...
I had so many questions and I could not get answers to, because when I was trying to, like, search for stuff, I even searched under the Italian name, which is Miliardi.
Yeah.
I got very vague stuff. Like, I wanted to know why was it, because it had all these American actors, but it's directed by this Italian director, written and directed by this Italian guy. But then I was
based off an Italian novel by Renzo Barbieri.
And I just wanted to know, why did he choose to do this? Like, I'm assuming it was in English, because we watched it in English, but did he release it in English and had Italian subtitles?
I mean, stuff like this has happened in the past, right? Like, you know the term spaghetti western.
Yeah.
It's because these English-speaking westerns are done in Italy with Italian crews. So it's, there is precedent for this type of thing to happen. Not really with these filmmakers specifically, but maybe he was trying to use this to break through into the American audiences. And it just failed. But yeah, I don't know. I really don't know if the intention was to maybe do a couple of the scenes twice, or just have, like once in English and once in Italian, or...
Yeah, that's what I was trying to...
Because some of these actors, as far as I could tell, they do also speak Italian.
Oh, yeah.
So, probably not all of them, but...
There are some...
enough.
There are... I don't want to say they're all American actors, but the majority of them are. But, I mean, you have some French and Italian actors in here as well.
Yeah.
And I thought there was even like a point where it was like an older woman, and I thought she was speaking Italian, but they were like dubbing over her voice to English.
Was it Margherita Florinda Bolton?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, she had done a lot of Italian movies.
She was the only one.
It's very possible. Well, okay. What I was reading from her is that she speaks Italian fluently, but with an accent, because she's from Brazil. And so when she did Italian movies, they would still dub her voice.
Okay.
Because
she
but
was
I don't know. I don't think they would have done that for her English speaking voice. Films of that era were produced, or of a certain budget are produced, if they're trying to do cross language stuff, because I mean, there are a lot of foreign movies that are done in English that sound like they're dubbed, even though they may not be. It almost seems like they just filmed the movie without sound recording, and then they just do dubs of every single line after the fact, just to maybe speed up production. And so maybe that's part of what happened here too in certain scenes. Is like, we're not going to risk having a bad take. We can't afford to reshoot things, so we're just going to shoot this scene without sound and go back and just have them do it in the studio later.
Yeah, and we watched a movie like that somewhat recently.
Yeah.
We found out that it was all...
Right. I can't remember
it was that
exactly
knock knock movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I can't remember why. Like, they had to go back in and redo their own voices for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, I think it's probably more common than we think, especially if they're trying to crank movies out. I don't know.
Yeah.
The circumstances of this, it did feel like a TV movie, like you were saying before, but just with nudity. Just in terms, like, there's no real skill to the filmmaking, sad to say. It's very plainly shot. It's very sterile and as straightforward as you can possibly think of in terms of the filmmaking. A lot of it does seem very low budget. Like, there's several scenes with this banker who is played by Donald Pleasance. Mm-hmm. And that's all done in some random, like, red velvet room that's meant to be the bank, I guess. But, like, all of his scenes are shot, like, probably in one day in that one room. And it just doesn't look like a bank. It's just whatever location they could find that was kind of fancy. And he's just sitting at a table talking quietly, saying, "Yes, I approve your loan," or "No, I do not."
I was like, why is he speaking that way?
I don't know.
Well, then I thought this was a TV movie because, okay, this was released in Italy, and then when we were in Europe, one of my favorite things is just watching their local TV channels, and there is a channel, at least in Spain, called the Movies for Men channel. And I was like
10 years ago. We don't know if it's still on.
I mean, it's been 10 years, but I don't know if I think I Googled, was this a Movies for Men? I was trying so hard. I was like, this is the movie that would be on the Movies for Men channel.
It's very male gaze. It doesn't have the action that a lot of the Movies for Men channel movies had, though, because that was a lot of it's a lot of like nudity and violence and like Rambo type stuff, and
Right.
Sexual thrillers and things like that. This is trying to be a sexual thriller, but it does not.
I kind of wanted it to be like I was also thinking like I wanted this to be like if this had like killings in it.
Sure.
I probably would like it more.
Yeah.
If there was some sort of suspense, thriller, crime.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the suspense classics side of things, and so the movie...
But it's not, like, suspenseful to me at all.
I think it's supposed to be, like...
It's a drama.
High corporate drama.
Okay.
Because you got the inner workings of the family, and the family's all working against each other, and, who's going to take control of the company type of stuff that they're trying to build up. It just doesn't work. And then at the very beginning of the movie... we'll get past the opening credits part. When the actual story happens, there's this guy who gets kicked out of a bar and he sees the helicopter crash with this big explosion, and then he goes to check it out and everyone's fine. Like, the helicopter is basically intact and the two dudes are just, sitting there like slumped back, and the guy who gets kicked out of the bar assumes that they're dead and robs them, steals their stuff, and then we find out that neither of them died, and Leo, who is like the patriarch of this whole thing, is in a coma, and they ship him away or whatever, and that guy in the bar becomes a plot point later on. So they set up like this idea of, something was stolen from this family that could be important. Here's this crime element. Here's this intrigue. Was the helicopter crash on purpose? And none of that pays off at all. So I think
it was just like, he's in a coma. We need to find someone to take his place immediately. Like, this is a wannabe Succession.
Yeah, before Succession happened, right?
Yeah. It was Succession, probably whoever was the writers for that was like, I can do this, but better.
Right, yeah. Yeah, they looked at millions. They're like, let's update millions. But turn it into a good show. So, I mean, that's sort of the intention here. But, yeah, I mean, that was one of the questions I wrote down is, okay, Leo is recovering. He's in this coma. And they have to do, like, an immediate vote to see who's going to take his place. Like, do they actually not have a contingency plan for this type of thing in this massive corporation?
Yeah, that's why I was like, why do they need to do this way? Right. Doesn't he have, like, a right-hand person? Like a vice president role that takes over if he's sick or dying.
I mean, because this guy is, I don't know, 60s? I don't know.
Yeah, he wasn't even that old.
But still old enough to have written down what happens if I suddenly pass away.
Yeah, he doesn't have a will or testament.
Here's the chain of command.
Right.
So, like, none of that happens. And then, like, the whole other conceit of this whole thing is that Billy Zane's character gets passed over for this promotion. Mm-hmm. He thinks he's well deserving of it, and we'll sort of get back to that in a second, because there's a couple, like, scenes and quotes that I want to mention in that. But his plan is he ends up, like, meeting up with this guy from the bar who had some stuff of Leo's, including a briefcase, which had a secret plan for some other new company that Leo was going to be forming at some point that no one else knew about. And he takes that plan and runs with it and tries to, basically gain the power and the money. But they never think about what would happen when Leo wakes up. Because it's assumed that he will. And so, like, Billy Zane is having, like, this race against time until Leo wakes up. It seems like there's a big rush to do everything.
He's anticipating that Leo will wake up, and then Billy Zane's character Maurizio is like, I'm in charge now, so you are not anymore.
Right. I guess that's sort of what he's hoping will happen.
Or it's like, you're too old now because you were in a coma.
Yeah,
now I'm in charge.
It doesn't make a lot of logical sense, whatever happens.
That's what this whole. I had so many questions.
And his downfall and the ending is really, really great. Okay,
there's a
lot that we can sort of dive into on the different plot points on this. But before we do that, I think like the best introduction to this movie that we haven't even talked about yet is the actual introduction to the movie, where the opening credits happen, and you have this shot on like $100 bill.
Oh yeah.
Which we learn as the shot pans out that it's actually curtains made out of money or made to look like money.
Right.
And the credits are rolling and everything, and you have all this shots of like jewelry and stuff on these different tables, and like this woman walks out of the money curtains, and then you have a bunch of people posing with like giant perfume bottles and
like pearls and stuff.
And there's
just
like a
like
woman
draping...
with like her face against the glass to make it with like a drawn dollar bill around her to make it look like she's on the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, I guess it's a perfume ad or something. I don't know what is happening in this.
I don't know, but it was making me laugh.
Yeah, and the music, of course,
the
too. The
music, to me, was amazing.
Yes.
The soundtrack, I love, and I wish that I was also looking. I was like, who did... That's why I was doing, like, Soundhound. I'm like, who is this person? But...
It's
like
very,
it didn't recognize.
IMDb credits 4 different people.
Yeah.
None of them have other credits, though, really. Or very, very few credits.
Yeah, one of them does.
Okay.
And he did music for Carlo Vanzina for other movies. That's what...
Yeah, in general, like, not.
But he hasn't done anything else. One of the best composers, I don't know, for like scoring movies is Giorgio Moroder. Do you know who that is?
No, by name.
He's an Italian. He's considered like the godfather of like Italo disco. This I was like, this is Italo disco, and I was like, I need to know who it is, and I was like, is this Giorgio Moroder? But it's not. He's done a lot of movies, and most that he has done the score for is Never Ending Story.
Oh, okay.
So, like, that synthesizer-y type music. That's what this music is.
At least half of it. The other half is,
very
like, straight up saxophone. Yeah, there's
It's either, like,
synth.
synthesizer. That was like, oh, this is like Cam.
Yeah.
Where it's, like, 4 different people coming up.
And combining into, like,
combining
one force.
to make music.
Yeah, when we say Cam, we're talking about a movie called Pieces, which is a horror movie from early 80s, where the music is credited as Cam. There's no actual person named Cam. It's really just a conglomerate of Spanish artists, which also has the same type of film dubbing, by the way. So yeah, I mean, the music is campy at times, but it's really good campy.
And I was trying to find, is there a soundtrack? Because I would listen to that.
I think probably in Italy.
Like on my own.
Yeah, there might have been in Italy. To give anyone, this is what I wrote down for one of the saxophone songs. It sounded like a slow version of the Alf theme song. So imagine that. If we can find anything on YouTube,
I honestly could not.
You couldn't find anything on YouTube for the
not even
music?
on YouTube. I found like a soundtrack for Carlo Vanzina Vanzina.
Yeah, the director. Right?
Yeah, the director. I found a soundtrack for his other movie called Piedi Piatti. I don't know if you... That's another 1990...
It's another 1991 movie, but it's not on our list because that does not seem to have an English... U.S. release.
Yeah, I found that on YouTube. And one of the guys that did the music for this also did the music for that. So it's kind of similar, but yeah, I couldn't find any music from this movie anywhere.
Okay.
Which sucks.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. But it's very interesting, and it does not usually fit the scenes that it's in, and it usually ends abruptly during a scene, or there's an exterior establishing shot of a mansion or something like that, and you have this upbeat sitcom music happening on the the synth keyboard, and then it just suddenly cuts off once the interior shot happens and they start talking. And a lot of weird uses of the sappy music or the crazy zany music or the sexy music, and it doesn't always fit the tone. Oh yeah, we sort of took a small deviant, but yeah, the opening sequence of like all those models in the perfume ad or whatever the heck that was supposed to be, that was just like a one-time thing for those like 2 minutes, and then we never see any of those characters again. I don't think. I didn't recognize any of them later on, and it didn't factor into the plot in any way.
It's like the casting, all the females in this movie, they were like former models turned actresses.
Yes, almost all of them, if not every single one. So we have Lauren Hutton, who plays Leo's wife, Christina. We have Carol Alt, who plays Betta, who is... I tried to write down all these different relationships. I think it's...
the cousin of
Maurizio. Niece of Leo. I don't know who her father is, though.
I was like, is it that Osvaldo?
No, because Osvaldo is Maurizio's dad.
Okay.
Osvaldo is Leo's brother.
Yes.
So I don't know who Betta's parents are, but she's the niece and cousin of Maurizio. We'll get into that whole convoluted relationship later on.
So is she the daughter of Lauren Hutton and Leo? Is she Leo's daughter? I was so confused.
Maybe, I guess, but they did... No, I don't think so. I think they said that she was Leo's niece. Well, because
they wanted... Okay, so I think the main thing about what I got from this is that Leo wants like an heir to his company. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know if we're just going to skip all the way to the end. She's pregnant with a boy, I guess.
Yeah, some baby. I don't think they know if it's a boy or not. But she's pregnant at the end of it.
She's pregnant at the end. And then Lauren Hutton, or Christina, tells Betta, oh, well, now we have an heir to this company.
Yeah, maybe it is their daughter, and I just missed that part.
But I was like, why can't she be the heir? Or do they really need, like, a guy to be in charge?
See, I specifically have it listed as Leo's niece.
Okay.
From the opening scene where we get introduced to Betta, where she's, like, waking up in some random person's house, and, she wakes up and doesn't remember where she is, that she's been there for like 3 days. She doesn't remember how long it's been that she's been there. And then she drives off in that guy's car to go to the airport.
Well, she seems like she's the party girl.
Super party girl, yeah.
She's like, you see her doing drugs and, partying, at the clubs.
She's a
like the
ultra socialite type of a person, but just
like this
private.
Wild child, right? Yeah. So I'm wondering, now I'm wondering if she is Leo's daughter, and then she's living this, frivolous lifestyle, and he probably doesn't. We don't hear much from Leo because he's mostly in a coma until like the end when he gets out of the coma.
The only reason I think it is not is one, because I specifically wrote down niece, which made me think that I definitely heard it, because I was trying to keep track of these things. Okay. Well, someone said that she was Leo's niece.
Oh, okay.
And also Christina probably would have been trying to more actively interact and reach out to her if she was her daughter.
Okay.
And that never happens.
So she's probably...
But I don't know who...
doesn't have parents, and that's why she's acting that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Or like maybe it's Margarita's daughter, because Margarita is Leo's sister. Osvaldo is Leo's brother. And we don't really... I don't really know how Margarita fits into the whole situation either. She's just sort of there.
Yeah, I don't know her role in this entire... I know she's part of the family, but I don't know what
she doesn't factor into the plot. Yeah, the one of the downsides of this early movie is that there are a lot of quick introductions, and they go extremely fast, and they basically just go around the room saying, here's this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. Let's go to business now.
Yeah, and they don't explain how anyone knows anyone, and it's like us trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and we don't know what information we have to retain, who do we actually need to know in these scenarios, because it's not all of them. There's way too many of them, and it's just not viable.
I got so confused with... Well, Betta I knew was his cousin because Maurizio and Betta, they have like when they see each other in Italy, because it's in Milan mostly, but they do go to like Mexico and somewhere else.
Yeah, they're globetrotting at times for
They're, like,
various different...
going...
New York City, of course, as well.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, New York. It starts in New York. But
Is that where the helicopter crash was?
Well, at least the beginning of the...
Or is that where Maurizio was at the beginning?
That's where Maurizio was. That's where he lives.
Okay.
Is from, I think.
Yeah, because he goes back to the U.S. to deal with Osvaldo and Connie. That stuff is happening in New York. Yeah. And then also his friend from college, David, that he loops into this whole thing.
But goes to Italy to visit his family, and that's where Betta lives.
Right.
And the majority of his family members.
Yeah, it's really hard to know who to keep track of and who not, because a big plot point is that they don't give the company to Maurizio, they give it to this guy, Lamberto Razza. Mm-hmm. We don't ever hear from Lamberto Razza. He never says a word, I don't think.
Yeah, I was like, who is he? Just like a friend? Or like a close...
They make a really big deal of it, and they say his name multiple times. And then, there's like the board meeting where it's approved or whatever. But he doesn't factor in the plot. Like, even in all of Maurizio's dealings afterwards, he never goes to Lamberto Razza. Never has any interactions with him about the company at any point. So, I don't know. It's really... I had a really hard time wrapping my head around this movie, and I didn't understand if it was just a bad drama. Was this supposed to be satirical and funny at times? Was this supposed to be something of a farce? I know it's not like a straight comedy.
No.
But it was so silly in some of the situations.
I was like, this is kind of over the top and campy.
Looking at what the other Carlo and Enrico have done in the past, it seems like a lot of it is comedy. They've done stuff like Italian fast food and I Don't Speak English and a Christmas Vacation series, which is not the same as the National Lampoon, but they've done like at least 3 Christmas Vacation movies over there that all look, all this stuff looks like it's madcap Italian comedy. And so I'm wondering, are they just trying to bring these, zany situations to this drama picture, and it just doesn't work? All this stuff with the family and people getting caught sleeping with other people, and this person's related to this person but also sleeping with this person, and then this is also happening on the side with these other 2 people. Like, it seems farcical to me, and I don't know if it's supposed to be. I think what didn't help me is that scene where Zane gets Billy Zane's character. On all my notes, I just wrote Zane for simplicity. When Billy Zane's character gets passed over in favor of Razza, he takes like a bottle of champagne. He jumps up on a table and does like some serious Nicolas Cage level acting of, like super over exaggerated. Yeah. And saying like, why is this happening? And he's like screaming at the top of his lungs, what would make you think that I would be a mistake of running this company? Which he's saying while he's yelling at the top of his lungs in a public setting on top of a table while holding a bottle of booze during a work day. Right? Mm-hmm. What would make you think that I would be a mistake? So like that type of scenario online, that seems like it's supposed to be comedic, but it's not delivered in a comedic way.
But, I mean, I was laughing because it was like...
Yeah, because he was just
acting.
Super over the top.
Yeah, like, yeah.
I wanted more of that from Billy Zane.
I don't know.
I wanted him to go like full Nick Cage.
Nah, only Nick Cage can do Nick Cage.
I know, in the grand scheme of things, that's true. But... in this performance, that was like his one moment where he could have been did like, something outrageous. Yeah. And the rest of it was much more, hey, you're attractive, let's sleep together.
Yeah, that was the rest of the movie was him sleeping with like every woman he saw.
Almost. Yes, including relatives.
Yes, which I was like, excuse me?
Which again is like, is that supposed to be a satire? Is that supposed to be like, oh, these conglomerate type of families, these royalty or fake royalty, they're incestuous? Like, is that supposed to be a commentary thing, or is that just
I don't.
we have an attractive woman, let's get her into bed?
Right. Well, because he was just seducing any woman that like had some sort of hand or power into something with this company. And
well, also his friend David was just sending girls to his room whenever they met.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then okay. There is a scene. Was this Osvaldo, where it's near the beginning? Someone wakes up and it's like 4 naked people in a bed.
That was whoever Beta crashed with. We don't know who that guy was, which is confusing because I thought that was
a family member. I
thought that was like Maurizio, who was in bed, or Osvaldo or somebody who was in bed with
because it was an older man,
people, and then we learn it's the niece that's there, and so it was really just her introduction as a character.
Okay, because I was like, is she sleeping naked with her uncle and 2 other women? That's what was.
No, it's just her and her 2 friends
probably had
getting
like
together with this guy,
a foursome or something, or a threesome or something. Yeah. Okay.
And then she takes the car to the airport.
But they don't. Yeah, they don't show them. Well, there are sex scenes.
Bunch of butts.
This was not it. Yeah, it was just like they zoom in on like 4 butts, and I'm like, what is happening? Uh-huh. And then they zoom out, and it's like this guy gets up, then she gets up, and I was like, wait a second, is this her family? But
yeah, like the first introduction.
I was just confused.
Yeah, but when Beta and Maurizio meet up again in Italy for the first time in, I guess, over a decade or something,
it's
she's like, oh, I was always wild about you, and you never looked my direction
and I was
twice.
like, why would you say that to your cousin?
Right.
They do know that they're cousins because they're like, you grew into be this like handsome dude and blah blah blah. And she's like hitting on him and he's like hitting on her, and this is in the beginning of the movie, and I was like, I would never say this to any family member. Mm-hmm. And then like fast forward to like 3/4 into the movie, they're sleeping together, and I was like, and then if we just want to spoil the end, she's pregnant with his baby, and everyone in the family is like okay with that. Yeah. And like, that's why I was like,
the ending is extremely abrupt, and so I do want to kind of hold off on some of the plot points at the end and how abrupt it is, but like it's a very strange thing. And then the other subplot is that Julia, who is the wife of Alberto, who is like, I guess, another cousin,
like his other cousin, but I was like, why isn't
but Alberto... I don't know who Alberto's father is either.
Yeah, that's why I was like, why isn't Alberto considered for this role? If they're doing like, if they want an heir, quote unquote, for this company,
right? There's people.
How come? Yeah, I mean, like why not him?
Yeah, I really don't know.
Unless he's. Unless he doesn't want anything. They don't really show him that much. They mostly show Julia, his wife.
Yeah, Julia, who basically is like, oh, I always wanted Maurizio instead of you, but he was already married, so I settled for you, Alberto. Yeah. And then Alberto's like, well, he's divorced now. And so
then, she's like,
okay, well, now I'm gonna go sleep with him, basically.
Right, and they have this affair throughout majority of this movie until Leo
wakes up.
Yeah. But I think she's trying to do the same thing that Maurizio is doing. She wants to be in charge.
Well, I think she just wants to be with the person who has power.
Who has money, and power.
Because she's also sleeping with this other guy, Piero Costa, who is like another businessman that Maurizio tries to use to gain money to go for the side venture and everything. And so, yeah, everyone's sleeping with everybody else.
Wouldn't her husband... Okay, if she wants to marry someone who's in power, then why is she married?
Well, if you can have attractive and power, then go for that. If you just want power, then there's Piero. But if you want attractive, young, and power, then Maurizio's your guy.
Right.
It's really not a choice.
So she just settled for the cousin, Alberto.
Right. Yeah, probably. We don't get backstory.
Yeah.
We're building it ourselves.
Yeah.
We get sex music.
Right. Until, like, Maurizio comes and visits, and then she's all over him, and then, you know, she wants power and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we get the more explicit sex scenes with her.
Yeah.
And then there's also another woman, Connie, who is Osvaldo. Osvaldo is Leo's brother. He has a office in New York that Connie runs, and Connie is not only like the assistant or partner, but also his lover. They have some side books. Basically there's some hidden money, and Maurizio learns of it by sleeping with Connie.
Right.
And gets access to everyone's sleeping with her.
He's sleeping with her, and then this is like a dumb thing when he first sleeps with her and they're done, I guess. She gets up to take a shower, but beforehand
opens her safe.
She opens her safe, but she
cracks her safe with a crack showing.
No. She puts like this big giant necklace of pearls that she had on in there, but then she like shows them something else. I forgot what it was.
Well, she leaves the safe open while she walks out of the room,
and then she leaves it open.
That's when Maurizio goes and like finds. I think it's the key to the New York apartment where the actual bookkeeping records were.
But that was dumb, unless she did that on purpose. But I was like, this is dumb.
I mean, a lot of what happens is dumb. But yeah, so basically Maurizio uses that information in New York to blackmail his own father, Osvaldo, by basically saying, I know you've been evading taxes to the tune of however many million, so appoint me president of the company, get rid of all your shares and all this other stuff, or else I'm telling, right? So again, there's attempts at intrigue and power plays and stuff like that, but yeah, and it also says, I want a new father, damn it. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I want a new father, damn it. Fun stuff like that happens. But yeah, like near the end, when Maurizio is caught doing this side business thing, and Leo has woken up, and Maurizio's arrested for something. I don't know why he's arrested.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, Connie finds something out and she gets him arrested, and I was like, for what? Because she was like, I caught you, and
he's trying to get funding from different sources. Like, he got $100 million from Donald Pleasant's banker character, and then he's trying to get additional money from Piero Costa, who's actually secretly working against them, but that doesn't really become a plot point except for from a couple lines of dialogue. And I guess, I know that like they're involved in bribing some sort of like Mexican judge to get some other thing happening, but David's mostly doing that. That's not so much Maurizio. But yeah, evidently he's arrested, and in order to get him out of jail, Osvaldo turns the tables and says, I want you to reinstate everything back to my name. And I'm just thinking, well, why can't Billy Zane just use Osvaldo as leverage to like get himself out of trouble? The tax evasion thing is still a real thing. Like why does his legal problems mean that Osvaldo's go away? You could easily like none of this makes sense. You could just totally flip on his father if you wanted to.
Yeah, we have that, but then we have this whole thing with Christina Lauren Hutton's character with her father, and I was like confused by that as well.
Yeah, I don't know why that existed. Lauren Hutton's character doesn't have much to do here either. She just sort of like sits at Leo's bedside here and there, and then she denies Maurizio money in a key scene where she gets to, give the angry speech about like morals, I guess. But other than that, they play up all these different relationships that she has, and none of it really comes to fruition, but the one that they focus on is the one with her father that she became estranged of when she married Leo, because her father didn't approve. And then reconciliation for some reason? I don't know why.
I don't know why. Why did she go to his house?
It was to ask for money from him.
Because Leo...
To get the money for the deal once Leo was available. To basically, wrestle control out of Maurizio.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know. They didn't have to have that whole subplot because it didn't do anything.
And... yeah, she visits...
Because the banker's like, oh, I don't have any more money because I gave it all to Piero. Right? It's like I gave $100 million to Maurizio, but then I gave the rest to Piero for this deal, so I don't have any more money.
She goes for her father, and she's just like, they have this very awkward moment, but then she's like, I've always been afraid to come and visit you, but here I am, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, like, he looks angry at her, but then all of a sudden he softens. He's like, I've been waiting for you all this time type of talk.
Yeah.
But then that was it. That was the end of that. It was like 4 minutes.
But at that point, I was so ready for it to be over. I didn't want that scene to happen. Because, once Leo wakes up, I'm thinking, okay, cool. Everything's going to start wrapping up. And we're going to be done with this movie. But no. There's, another, 45 minutes. I don't know. It's like a 2-hour long movie, and Leo wakes up a little bit more than halfway through, and I really thought that we were close to the end because of how the pacing was.
Yeah.
And we weren't. And I was getting angrier the more it dragged on.
I was just confused the entire time.
I mean, the other thing that happens, near the end is, she has to do all this stuff to get the money. But then at the end, there's a scene with Leo and the banker at this racetrack, and he's like, "I'm gonna need $1 billion for this new project," and the banker's like, "Okay." Seriously, doesn't even think about it. He's like, "Yeah, it's yours." And then the next scene is with, Christina and Betta being like, "I'm pregnant with my cousin's baby," and Christina's like, "Okay." She basically shrugs it off, you, and then she's like, okay.
She wasn't why did you sleep with your cousin, please?
Yeah, none of that. It's just
she's
I'm so disappointed in you for 2 seconds. All right, you have a baby growing.
Then she was like, oh, we'll have an heir to this company. And I was like, but what about these 20 other people a part of this family?
Is Leo gonna stay alive that long now?
But then that's how it ends. I'm like, okay, so the baby is gonna be this heir?
Well, it also ends with Billy Zane's character at the house,
right,
with the briefcase, and Leo just puts his arm around his shoulder, and they just walk into the house. Okay, so all is forgiven.
So he was
like,
okay, well, all is well, whatever. Let's bygones be bygones, and whatever the fuck.
Lombardo Razza was robbed.
Yeah.
He did not get a fair shake to run this company. There's just so much weird stuff that happens in this, and very little of it makes sense. And the newspapers, since this is an Italian production, all the newspapers are in Italian with Italian headlines, and so they're looking at it and reacting to these things, and I don't know, context clues, I guess, but I don't know, we don't get subtitles or any sort of
something scandalous.
Right. We did see Maurizio's picture or Leo's picture in the paper with these words we can't understand, and then they make a comment on it that doesn't exactly tell
That's
us what
what
was
I
in
was
the
like.
paper.
Was this in Italian first, or I'm confused.
I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, there's a lot that just doesn't make sense in this movie, and we will never understand. The other thing that was really funny, and again, like, makes me kind of think of as farcical, is like when Leo is meeting up with the banker and he's like asking for money that first time and he gets turned down. Like, he's in a motorized wheelchair because he's coming out of a coma. So, you know, he's still like, whatever. And so when he gets denied, he just like grabs his motorized wheelchair and like backs out and tries to exit dramatically using his wheelchair.
Yeah.
And it just makes for a really funny scene for me. It's like, I don't know. There's just so much that just it's there's a lot that you can laugh at if you want to in this movie. So we can talk a little bit about the cast and crew that we haven't already. Billy Zane. This is our first movie with Billy on the podcast. We have seen his sister on Nightmare on Elm Street. What was it called? Freddy's Dead?
Yeah, Freddy's Dead.
Billy Zane's going to be in two other 1991 movies, Blood and Concrete and Femme Fatale. He was also in Twin Peaks around this time. He was in Critters. He was in Back to the Future 1 and 2 as part of Biff's gang. Dead Calm. He's also in Silence of the Hams, the parody of Silence of the Lambs.
I mean, his acting in this movie was not great, but
he was he was like smoldering the whole time. You know,
right.
he was giving like the evil eye.
Too hard
constantly.
to be a villain, and I've known him to be a villain in almost everything I've seen him in.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in the first time I saw him was in Dead Calm, and he's scary in that movie. And I'm like, why couldn't he just bring that into this?
There could be a lot of reasons, and honestly, like, the language barrier could be part of it. I mean, I'm assuming that Carlo and Enrico spoke English to a degree, but that doesn't mean that they know how to get good English language performances if it's not their native tongue.
Like sexy or something like that.
Yeah, there could be misdirection, there could be bad direction, there could be like, I don't give a shit what you do, just do whatever you want, and then we'll move on to the next shot so we can get this done. Could be a lot of things like that. But yeah, he's definitely trying to either put on the sexy face or give it the evil eye, and there's very little other than that except for the standing on the table yelling scene. But yeah, speaking of his villain work, he was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for Titanic for Best Movie Villain. So that's probably his most famous role. Lauren Hutton, again, we talked about her as a former model. Both in the 60s and the 80s, she had big surges in popularity, both those decades. She also had a talk show in 1995 for a little while. She's been in such movies such as Once Bitten, The Gambler, Gator, Paper Lion. She's also going to be in a couple of 1991 movies called Missing Pieces and Guilty as Charged. Carol Alt, former model. She was in a bunch of other stuff in Italy in the late 80s. That's really kind of where she cut her teeth in acting. It was in the Italian/English, this type of production. She's going to be in a couple other 1991 movies. Speaking of the Devil and Beyond Justice. You also may know her from the Thunder in Paradise TV show with Hulk Hogan, which was pretty popular for a while. And she also did quite a bit of infomercial work later on in life as well. Gene Sorrell played Leo. I didn't think he was ever going to show on camera except for in those pictures that were used as like cutaways to, show guilt in other people's faces. But he does have a role. He's in a lot of Italian and French movies mostly. He was in Belle de Jour, Day of the Jackal, and he's also in a 1991 movie that's not on our list because we couldn't find a way to watch it, called Speaking of the Devil. Who else do we have here? Oswaldo played Paris in the Romeo and Juliet movie from the 1960s. He's also been in a lot of, again, we talked about this before, he's in a lot of Italian or French productions. He was in a movie called Hands of Steel. He was in, going back farther, he was in Cyrano. He was in La Cage aux Folles 2 and Camille 2000. Those are some movies that people may have heard of. Connie, we didn't talk about a whole lot. I want to mention her just because she has done quite a bit since this movie. And even before that, this was a very soap opera movie. She is a soap opera actress. She was in the TV show Texas back in 1980 for over 100 episodes. She was in Loving between 1993 and 1995. She was on One Life to Live from 1998 to 2012 sporadically. She was also married to David Hasselhoff at one point, and also married to another person named Michael Knight, which was by David Hasselhoff's character in Knight Rider. But, so just an odd coincidence in that. These days, from what I could see, if it's still current, I'm not 100% sure, she does hypnosis comedy shows, like on stage, in theaters or whatever. And she also runs a cosmetics company called Catch Cosmetics, but it's not for animals, it's just because her name is Catherine. Catherine Hickland. I don't think I ever mentioned her name, I just said Connie. Who else do we have here? Oh, we didn't even talk about David that much, the college friend who kind of helps with all this stuff. David Phipps was played by John Stockwell, who's probably one of the more recognizable actors in this to some people. He was in Losing It and Christine, along with the person who played Julia, actually. Julia Alexandra Paul. She was the lead in Christine. John was in Top Gun, Dangerously Close. He was also Emmy nominated for writing that movie Cheaters, which was a 2000 movie with like Jeff Daniels and Jenna Malone. So he's also a writer and director. He's also done Blue Crush and Into the Blue as a director. So that's where his stuff is these days.
Alexandra Paul.
Oh yeah, I mentioned her briefly. She was in Christine. She'll be in a 1991 movie In Between. She was also Stephanie Holden on Baywatch. That's where she's probably most known. And she was also in the movie version of Dragnet from the 80s with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. Donald Pleasance, who played the banker Ripa, Emmy nominated in 1978. He's Saturn nominated for the movie Dracula from 1979, as well as Halloween 2. He plays Dr. Loomis in all of the Halloween movies up until his death when he passed away in 1995. He's going to be in the 1991 movie Shadows and Fog and Women in Arms. He's also well known for his roles in movies like You Only Live Twice, The Eagle Has Landed, The Great Escape, where he worked with a German POW, and he himself was with the British Air Force. His plane was shot down, and he was a POW in World War II. But eventually released in 1945. Here we are. No awards to speak of. What a surprise. So we can move on to true crime and pop culture, I guess.
Yeah, so true crime related, I did not find anything.
Yeah, I don't think this was based on a real story, but again, it was based off a novel.
I mean, it was based off a novel, but I was like, well, was this a real... I mean, this probably happens in, real life.
Yeah, I mean...
Not as over the top as this is.
Yeah, the big crime in this was tax evasion. So,
yeah.
That's just sort of assumed with every mega corporation.
And so, I mean, this movie was released on January 25th, which is a Friday, and I do have somewhat new TV stuff.
Okay.
It was not a typical TGIF lineup this Friday.
Uh-oh.
There was, on ABC, there was an episode of Full House. But after that, I tried to find this on YouTube, but couldn't find it. It was a New Kids on the Block at Disney MGM special.
Ooh.
I was probably watching that, maybe. That was from 8:30 to 9:30.
I'd be interested to see that.
I was like, I don't know. I went on YouTube.
Like, is it just like them walking around the park, like reacting to the rides,
or
and stuff?
them doing a show there for an hour,
or both.
Like, what if anything? New Kids on the Block was on anywhere. Like, I was like too obsessed with them around this time, so I was probably watching this.
If any super fans of New Kids on the Block are listening and have a copy recorded on their VHS.
The January 25th, 1991, New Kids on the Block at Disney MGM Studios.
Let us know, see if there's a way to get it over to us. We'd love to watch it.
But then
a bonus episode. Yeah, if you find it.
Right, and then okay, so that was for an hour, but then after that they had an episode of Perfect Strangers.
Okay.
And on CBS we had Guns of Paradise, which I remember we talked about. It's a Western drama.
Mm-hmm.
After that is a show that I've heard of, but I don't think I've talked about it on this podcast yet. And it's Sons and Daughters. Do you remember the show? I didn't watch it, but I remember the name.
It sounds familiar, and I don't know if it's just because like we flipped through a couple TV guides at this point.
And then we just see it.
Yeah.
Sons and Daughters, maybe that.
But maybe we've talked about it. It's already forgettable enough that we forgot that we talked about it.
I don't think we've talked about this because I'm looking at the synopsis.
Or did we just talk about like another show called Daughters or something?
Or something with sons in it.
Right. Like we talked about Sisters. Maybe I'm confusing it with Sisters.
So this is a comedy drama series focusing on an extended family in Portland, Oregon. After many years of absence from his family, Bing Hammersmith returns with a new wife and young son to his already grown-up family from his first marriage.
Why not call the show Bing Hammersmith?
Because that's a weird-ass name.
But it's more memorable than Sons and Daughters is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know, because
I guess if it's a drama,
he has a lot of
have
sons and daughters now, because he's this old family and now this new family. The person that plays Bing Hammersmith is Don Murray. Do you know who that is?
I don't know. I'd have to see it.
He was in Planet of the Apes. He was in Peggy Sue Got Married. He was in the movie Bus Stop with Marilyn Monroe.
No.
He was in, most recently, the Twin Peaks, not the remake, or the revival.
Right. Season 3 or whatever they call it.
Yeah. But I don't recognize him at all.
No, not really. I mean, we're seeing that a lot with these 90s shows, is that they bring in a bunch of character actors to be leads on TV shows.
He's in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
So he plays Bing. And then I think his first wife, this is the only other person that I sort of recognize, was played by Lucy Arnaz, which is Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's daughter.
So it's supposed to be a comedy or no?
It's a comedy drama.
Okay.
And it only lasted a season. It was 13 episodes.
I don't know. I'd give it a shot, I guess. I would give it more of a shot if it's called Bing Hammersmith. I'm standing by that decision.
Alright, so on Fox was America's Most Wanted, and then Against the Law, which I know we've talked about. It's a legal drama, obviously, that had Michael O'Keefe in it.
Mm-hmm.
On NBC, there was a full hour of world professional figure skating.
Yeah, it's not like riding the coattails of like some Olympic victory and like showcasing a person.
It was just professional figure skating for an hour.
Just trying it out and seeing,
which I probably
people liked it in the
watched.
Olympics, then let's see how it goes on normal.
I mean, I would have watched that if there was no New Kids on the Block on another
channel. Who the big skaters would have been, like Katarina Witt, I guess.
Like it's Brian
Boitano. Kwan, right?
And after that was an episode of Dark Shadows, and then after that was an episode of Midnight Caller, which we've talked about before. That's the one with Gary Cole in it.
Right, that one sounded interesting.
Yeah, that one actually sounds interesting to me, and I would want to watch that.
Yeah.
And then music-wise, I'm going to do the bottom 5. At number 100 is My Love is a Fire by Donny Osmond.
Okay.
And
I don't recall that one at all.
Me neither, until I watched the music video right before recording. And it seemed as if this is like he's trying to do a revival, like a 90s revival, and try to be all sexy and like...
Yeah.
whatever, because the video is him like all sweaty and like dancing around, and then it's like a close-up of his eyes only and being all smoldery, and I'm not into it.
Okay.
The song is whatever. Number 99 is I Don't Have a Heart by James Ingram, which is that's a grocery drugstore CVS classic. That's a top 10. And I mean, James Ingram, he sang Somewhere Out There with Linda Ronstadt. Yeah. I don't think we mentioned that. I know we mentioned Linda Ronstadt, but James Ingram has a lot of hits, including this one. And then 98 is Pray by MC Hammer. We all know that.
Yeah, it's not his best. Not his catchiest.
Yeah.
But also probably not his best.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's alright.
97 is Close to Me by The Cure, and I had to do, right before we recorded, I had to do a search because I was like, this song is from the mid-80s. Why is it on a 1991 chart? And it's because The Cure released a mix. It's called The Mixes tape or album in November 1990, and this song was on it. But it was a remix, and I'm assuming the remix is on the chart, not the original. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough
to say. It says Close to Me, not like in parentheses remix, but
yeah, it could be the radio's played the original as, just
to be like, hey, remember this song? And now everyone's like, oh yeah.
If you want to hear a remix version, you can buy this album.
Right.
Type of a thing, yeah.
And then number 96 is Give It To Me Good by Trickster.
All right, on to rankings and ratings we go. On your 1 to 5 star scale, where would you put Millions?
I did not hate this movie as much as some other movies.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna give it a 1. I almost gave it a 2 just because of the music.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm like, the music is making me push it to a 2 or something.
But if you want it to be a 2, you can make it a 2.
I'm giving it the movie a 1 because I was literally confused the entire time.
Yeah. Low production value. Yes. Very confusing plot. Just because, a lot of it just did not make logical sense and there's just too much happening. On my 0 to 4 star scale, I'm going to give it a 1 as well. I was fascinated the entire time.
Yeah, I was like, what's happening? But I'm like, where is this going? And then it just kind of ends weird.
Yeah, and I was getting bored at the end after Leo woke up. I'm like, okay, let's move it along here, folks. This is, let's go. But honestly, yeah, I hate to say it, but the sexiness of it was intriguing because it was like, why is this happening more than anything? It wasn't titillating. It was more it was titillating my logical sense. Why are these relationships happening? And
if that's like I said before, if there was a murder or something, I would be 10 times more into this movie or something.
Yeah, it tries to present itself as a cat and mouse business thriller, but okay, every movie's worth watching once. Would you watch this again?
I kind of would, just so I can figure out if it makes sense again.
I would not expect it to make sense, but it's worth it for some of the music stuff. If I had to pick between this and Other People's Money,
oh yeah,
this
I would
for
watch
sure.
This, yeah.
Even though I think it's a worse produced film, it's still more enjoyable. I think there's stuff that's interesting to watch. I think, if people are out there, and especially if you have that 50-pack or some suspense, look at your movie multi-packs if you have them. Check the back of the box if it's there.
I think on YouTube. So
oh, is it on YouTube now
I think it's on YouTube.
Okay, so check it out. It's worth checking out just because of how quirky and weird it is compared to
I
other
mean,
stuff.
it's like, I don't know if it's meant to be campy on purpose, but to me it's like campy Italian
we
drama.
need more eyes on it, and for you to report back to us as to what you think. Is it
like, do you
is
agree
it comedy
or
is it
disagree?
satire?
Yeah.
Is it just poor drama? Let us know. So yeah, if you want to watch Millions, as of this recording in January 2022, it's available on VHS in some regions. It's on DVD and I guess on YouTube as well. As always, check your local listings. As for us, you can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com, or so you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of 800 movies along with show notes and more. Next week, we'll be watching A Rage in Harlem. It's going to be available a whole bunch of places: Prime, Tubi, Pluto TV, Hoopla, Roku channel, digital rental, VHS, DVD. We will see you then.
Thanks.